A bit of a double scandal going on, and it involves the Globe and Mail. First off, we've got the story that they broke after the election about money being funneled out of special funds for struggling students and unions being paid off. Now we've got also the Globe holding back that story. That's a secondary scandal. Let's unravel some of this with my friend Ray Hurd. Ray, you've been editor of a major daily newspaper in Canada. You've run a television newsroom in the past. Let's start with the Globe scandal, that they had this story of secret payments from the Ontario Liberals to unions, teachers' unions, and they held off on it until after Canadians had voted in the federal election. They're defending that and saying, well, province and federal, they're two different things. What's your take on that side of things?
I'd say that is a bold-faced lie. The fact is, and you know this, and every Canadian voter now knows it, Justin Trudeau, Trudeau's biggest ally, actually his mentor in the election, was the Premier of Ontario, Kathleen Wynne,
who by the way authorized these payments.
Yes, and she is involved in a lot of other scandals, as we know. The Ontario Provincial Police have even investigated her office. So the Globe had this story. This is today's big scoop, where they say the total was $6.5 million.
Okay, but hold on. That's
the total.
That's how
we'll
much.
Get to that.
That's how much money the teachers' unions that were getting these secret payments were then spending to back the Wynne Liberals for re-election.
Yes. And demonizing the Tory party in advertisements taken out by the unions. It's not just one union involved. So this is a huge scandal. I applaud the Globe reporter, Adrian Morrow, for breaking it. But why would the Globe hold back a story that the voters of Canada should have known about just before the election? And I'm sure that the working journalists I know at the Globe, and I have a lot of friends there, are very upset that their paper willfully delayed publishing a huge political story, possibly, Brian, the biggest political story of the election after the kneecap would have been this scandal that the Globe chose not to report because someone at the Globe, and I think heads may still roll for this, I'm not sure that the top people agree with that decision. I hope they don't. But this is a huge scandal. And let me just give you a little bit of history. The ad scam scandal that brought down the Chrétien Martin regimes was a huge scandal, was very similar. In ad scam, government money went to advertising agencies, and those agencies kicked money back to the Liberal Party. As I understand this scandal at Queen's Park, which is on today, and it gets worse every day, as far as I can see, this is the government of Ontario, run by the Liberal Party, gives secret payments, and the operative word is secret here, Brian, to these unions, and the unions obviously use money that they've raised, including money given them secretly by the Liberal government, to take out huge advertisements, and I think the total is well over $3 million worth of advertisements depicting the Tories as cigar-smoking, scotch-drinking Pinocchios. They actually had one with Pinocchio as Hudak with his nose growing longer. So this is...
they've run the attack campaign for the Ontario Liberals for several years now. The Ontario Liberals have not had to spend as much because they've had these people doing it. And we knew that they were spending this kind of money. We knew that they were doing it for some kind of kickback, but we just thought it was what we saw in the public negotiations, Ray. Now we're finding out, no, there's also special kickbacks totaling millions of dollars.
Yeah, and those were secret. Keeping them secret, in my humble judgment, is an admission of guilt. If you secretly give money, you've got a reason. You don't want the public to know what you're doing. But
but hold on. Liz Sandals, the education minister, was asked, what did this money pay for? Did you get receipts? Did you get documentation? And her response was, and this goes back to ad scam, you didn't get too much detail on what the payments were for. in this case, she just said, oh, no, we don't have receipts. We know what meeting rooms cost. We know what pizzas cost.
Do you know why there are no receipts? That is another admission of guilt. You always get receipts. And do you know whose money it is, Brian? It's my money and your money. But let me just add one important element to the story. In half an hour's time, Justin Trudeau will be at Queen's Park to meet the politically corrupt Premier, Kathleen Wynne. And guess what they've decided to do? Not to take any questions from the media. This will be a photo op of Justin probably hugging her, but he's a great hugger, as we know, and I use it with an H. Having said that, Brian, why does Justin Trudeau promise to run an open administration, and he is not sworn in yet, but he's the designated Prime Minister? Why doesn't Justin Trudeau and why doesn't Kathleen Wynne allow the media to ask questions today? And I'll answer the question. Do you know why, Brian?
Why?
Because they know this scandal would come up. Journalists, including Adrian Morrow, who broke this story in the Globe, would ask Justin and her to comment on this burgeoning political scandal, which is the latest of maybe a dozen scandals that have afflicted this government.
Unfortunately, none of those have stuck, not even the bribery up in Sudbury, not even the gas plants. None of it seems to stick to Kathleen Wynne. I think there's a lot of lapdog reporters down at Queen's Park there's not that many reporters, actually. Maybe that's more the problem than lapdogs, because if I think about Adrian Morrow at the Globe, Christina Blizzard at the Sun, even Rob Benzies at the Toronto Star will break stories that are not flattering to the government, but nothing sticks to Kathleen Wynne or Dalton McGuinty before her. So it'll be interesting to see if this one does. Let me ask you about this. Dennis Choquette is the national editor at the Globe. He said that it would have been, their neutrality would have been questioned if they ran this story.
If they published a story, that's absolute codswallop. And I'm surprised. I would never have tolerated that when I ran a very successful mainstream paper. The bottom line is this: it's news. And if Justin had not been the protege and the buddy of Kathleen Wynne, I would still have published it. But it's germane because she was one of the major factors. And may I add this sidebar, which is important. The voters of Quebec or Alberta did not tolerate behavior like this. In Alberta, they threw Premier Redford out because she used an official aircraft to ferry her daughter around. This is much more serious. Yeah. The voters of Ontario, who elected Kathleen Wynne in her own right in the election, they are very forgiving. They don't seem to care about these scandals. And I wonder, will the RCMP or the conflicted Ontario Provincial Police, who have a political position which was pro-Liberal as far as I could understand, will the RCMP and the OPP move in to Queen's Park and Kathleen Wynne's office to check out whether a crime was committed when your and my money, millions of dollars of it, was handed over secretly to unions supporting the Liberal regime? Will they do that? They better do it, because if they don't, their impartiality will be compromised, at least in my eyes.
Well, it's the police, the OPP, I've been calling them the Ontario political police for some time. Their impartiality is in question. Dennis Choquette at the Globe said they didn't run it because they didn't run the story on the election day because they didn't want to blow their appearance of neutrality. I'd say in not doing it, the Globe has damaged their reputation severely. It plays into what conservatives have long claimed, which is that there is a liberal media bias. New Democrats claim the same thing, by the way. It's not just conservatives that say that the media is in the tank for the Liberal Party of Canada. And I think this helps prove it. Doesn't matter how many times David Thompson, the owner of the paper, says once every 4 years, run an editorial supporting the Conservatives. Yeah. The overall bent of the paper is towards the Liberal Party.
And Brian, those editorials, I was involved in them, when I had the Montreal Star. they don't really influence anyone but those who are already true believers. So no one really cares if a newspaper endorses a certain party or a certain candidate, except for a kind of minority of political junkies. It doesn't matter. But news stories, and these are hard news stories. Adrian Morrow, I hope, gets the National Newspaper Award for crusading journalism. That's what Woodward and Bernstein did when I was your age.
Okay, let me just talk to you about this quickly, and we'll end on this. For anyone that wants to take shots at the Globe for covering up this scandal, or at least holding it back, I've had stories held back on me because they weren't ready, because the lawyer said, ooh, we're not sure about that. If we report that without getting comment, without getting confirmation, could open the publication up to liability, open up to lawsuit. I've had stories held like that. I never had a story held back for these reasons. But at the end of the day, it is not Adrian Morrow or any frontline reporter that makes that decision. That's management. So yes. Kudos to Adrian Morrow, I say. Shame on management. I don't think Adrian Morrow should wear the shame that his piece was held.
And there are several other brilliant younger reporters like him. Daniel LeBlanc of the Globe in Ottawa, where you're based, broke the ad scam scandal. I wonder what these guys think. But as journalists, I think they have a duty to speak up now. And I'm not sure that the Globe would dare fire any reporters who publicly expressed regret that the image of the Globe, and I doubt that the guys whom I know right at the top of the Globe, I'm not sure they were involved in this decision. The way I see it, this was more middle management. And by the way, the public editors of most newspapers, especially the Globe, are just corporate apologists and corporate flacks for management. So this is what we know is the public editor of the Globe, who's supposed to represent the interests of the readers. Mm-hmm. And I must add, the New York Times is a public editor who does represent readers' interests. She just, every time she writes anything, it supports management. So basically, they shouldn't call them public editors. They should call them public flacks.
All right, Ray, we'll leave it there. Thanks so much. Ray Hurd joining me from Toronto. What do you think about this? Drop me a line, Brian at TheRebel.Media. And make sure you share this story and others like it on your social media. Email them to friends, family, post them on Facebook, Twitter, etc.